Hello and welcome back to another video. Today going to be giving my honest thoughts on Need for Speed Unbound, now that I've finally finished the campaign in the latest Need for Speed title. I will make sure though that there are no story spoilers in this video, just in case you might want to play the game and have everything as a surprise at some point down the line. Although there are, of course, many very large spoilers on the cars, given this is a Need for Speed game. Sorry. Anyway, I've now played over 20 hours of the game, mostly the campaign mode, but also some online as well. So let's go over all elements of the game, what's good, what's bad, and hopefully it'll help you decide whether it's worth getting or not if you haven't yet bought the game. Or if you've already played it, feel free to let me know if you agree or disagree with anything I say in today's video. So the only place we can really begin is with the biggest talking point of this latest game, the effects and cartoon style they went for, particularly on the characters, but also on the, tyre smokes and car animations and things. So I was skeptical, as a lot of people were, I think, about the decision to go for this very different approach, and I think a lot of people were worried and that put them off buying the game. Having seen them, though, in the game, they are a lot better than I expected, and I don't really mind them. You kind of feel that you're too focused on driving to really notice them too much once you're fully into the game and playing through it. Having said that, I don't think they improved the game by any stretch of the imagination, so quite why they took the decision to add them is still completely beyond me. I do think, though, if they are going to be in the game, we should at least be able to turn them off, because a lot of people don't like them, and very clearly they aren't for everybody. It's quite a niche style to have gone for, especially as they did kind of tell us we would be able to turn them off. I kind of feel like if they told us that, we should at least have that as an option, because otherwise they're just lying, basically. The only way to do it at the moment is with mods, so I really hope they add an update to remove the graphical style in the future, because although I now don't mind it, I would still probably prefer the game without it. As for the graphics themselves, they do look pretty good. I've been playing it on PC set to 1440p, especially at night in the rain, which is a bit of a classic Need for Speed trick, actually, to make their games look incredible. It kind of hides some of the finer details, and there's some cool reflections and stuff, so it always makes it look stunning. Don't get me wrong, it's no Forza Horizon. The latest Horizon game is incredible, but Need for Speed does do a pretty decent job on graphics. The car models seem slightly better than before, but again that may just be because the reflections and stuff have improved a little bit since Need for Speed Heat. I did only recently start playing Heat on PC, having originally played it on an Xbox, but this does look a lot better than even that game did. One thing I did notice, though, is it doesn't seem to make the most of a GPU. It seemed to have quite high CPU usage, and only use like 60 or 70% GPU at most. I don't think that really matters, though, because it still looks pretty good, so anyway. As it's a driving game, let's move on to the car list next. It is arguably the most important part of any racing game, is what you can drive in it. There is a sprinkling of new vehicles, but most of them were already in Heat. In fact, only 13 or 14 are actually new, and about half of those were just slight variations on existing cars from Heat, mostly just convertibles of coupes we already had in the previous game. I do really like the new cars that they have chosen, though, like the Lotus Emira and the new Lamborghini Countach, to name a couple of my favourite additions that are new since the previous game. The only obvious omission since the previous title is Audi, who now have no models present at all. Obviously there's things that weren't present before, like Toyota and things, which are still missing, but I'm not quite sure why Audi's been removed since Heat, because it seems to be in most other games, and there are other VW Group brands still in there. If you want to see the full car list, though, at least at launch of this game, I did make a video going over all the 143 cars that are in the new title, if you want to check that out after this video. Now, along with the effects, something I know a lot of people, including myself, were concerned about before this game came out was the physics and handling, which have been pretty terrible in the last few Need for Speed games. So, is it an improvement? Well, yes, it is much better, and it makes the game much more enjoyable to Heat, but it still has a long way to go. It's still not that nice. But it is a huge, huge improvement, but yeah, there are still a few problems. You still get random twitches from the car sometimes, and it feels a bit loose and floaty, which maybe is just a trait of arcade games, but sometimes it's not predictable, which is a little bit irritating. And although you can turn brake to drift off, it is still in there and it's switched on by default. So you actually have to physically go in and turn it off, which is a bit annoying. And it's also still marginally faster to drift than drive like a civilized human street racer. I do get it that it's an arcade game, but it still needs to be predictable and less kind of floaty, and the brake to drift does need to either go or just be made so it isn't faster than, well, driving normally, basically. This being a Need for Speed game, it of course has some wild customization options, and many of them, so on that front it does exceptionally well, as Need for Speed always does. There's almost everything carried forward from Heat, but there are also some new, absolutely mad options, particularly the legendary customs presets that are completely crazy, although personally a lot of them I don't like, but it's good to see that they're still pushing the boundaries of customization, as Need for Speed should be, really. So, what about the map and the location? The main focus of the map is Lakeshore, a fictional city based on Chicago, which I have to say fits the underground feel they're going with all the tunnels and some of the car meets and things that are based in these sort of underground sections. It just works really well, and the bridges that open up that you can leap over, as if you're the Blues Brothers, are absolutely fantastic fun. I feel like this location works much better for a Need for Speed title than Miami did, although I did quite like that as a location. It kind of worked quite well. I liked all the blue and pink lighting around the place, which always gives a really cool vibe, but yeah, I think this works better for the sort of underground theme and nature of Need for Speed. As for the police, no, not the band, the police in the game, they are more difficult than they were in Heat, which is good, more realistic. Although, having said that, the only time I've actually been caught is when I accidentally left the game open when I opened another tab during a stream, and didn't realise it didn't pause, so they got me while I wasn't looking, basically. So yeah, if you're actually in a pursuit, you never get caught. Even in B or A category cars, I was never really in danger of actually getting caught. Sometimes it was slightly irritating not being able to shake them, but at Heat level 5 and B and A, I was still able to escape without too much worry of actually getting caught. Sometimes it took a while to actually evade them, and I've been close to being caught, but yeah, I never really felt that in danger of being caught. Another thing that's not really Need for Speed's fault, to be fair, but is a shame, there are no Crown Vics anymore now that the US police don't use them. As for the story, which, again, just to be clear, I'm not going to give any spoilers on, it is better than most recent Need for Speed games, although some of it doesn't really follow any logic, but don't question it. It seems like a longer campaign than in Heat, with a long prologue, followed by quite a long campaign, in fact, as well, to complete and work your way through. It is a little bit of a grind, I find. Races get a bit repetitive, and yeah, it does get a little bit the samey. You end up doing the same routes and things like that, and you use the same car over and over because, well, it's hard to save up for things. So what you end up doing is you use some of the prize cars that you unlock through the campaign, because there's not really any option to go and buy anything else. And then you end up spending all of your money on upgrades just to be competitive throughout the rest of the campaign. So that potentially needs balancing a little bit. The story basically follows a fictional 4 weeks of in-game time, and probably takes about 15 hours in total if you're just trying to work your way through it as quickly as possible, and not doing online, and not customizing cars, and not kind of spending any time distracted on other things, which you inevitably will be in the game. But the pure campaign story probably is about 15 hours, roughly. One thing that is quite annoying is each time you leave the garage it's a new day or night, and you work through a week of these at a time, which is cool, but it can be, like I say, pretty annoying. If you want to go back into the garage, for example, just to change something minor, well, you can't. Well, you can, but then when you come out, you've skipped a day. So, basically, when you go back, all the money you've earned's banked, and then you have to go and get some more. So, you kind of miss out from some races, and you won't earn a lot if you keep going back. So, it's slightly irritating that you can't kind of go to garage and come out again. But I kind of understand why they did it, and it's not like that in online, so I guess it's not much of a problem, but it was something that was slightly irritating at times. And finally, the online, which is kind of strange. For some reason it's completely separate from the campaign, which I don't really like, kind of GTA style. but GTA added online later. This was in from launch and they decided to separate it, which isn't what they did in the previous games, so I'm slightly confused by it, and I don't really like it. It means you have to do absolutely everything twice, even making 2 characters, obviously saving for cars twice, which takes a while, as I said, so it's a bit annoying that you have to do it twice. It is faster in online than in campaign, particularly if you're winning the races, but yeah, it's a bit of a pain having to do it twice. Of course, there's no story online, so you just race and collect collectibles and stuff to earn your cash, but like I say, it is a little bit more rewarding than the campaign for the amount you do. There are also no police in online, which is a pretty important omission, particularly as this is Need for Speed. Although they do say at launch there won't be police when Need for Speed talks about it, which suggests that this might change in the future updates, but I really hope it does, and that obviously relies on them letting the updates go ahead and not cancelling them and closing studios down like they did with the last game. So if there is post-launch support, I really hope they'll update some of these things. You are also limited to a lobby of 16, with only up to 8 people allowed into each race, and only a party of 4 allowed. So if you have more than 4 friends, you can't really go online with them. It's impossible to organise more than 4 people into the same game, which isn't great, to be honest. So if you have more than 4 friends, you can't really play this game online, which is a bit of a shame, because I'm sure many people do. Again, as with the police, I hope in updates they change some of these things, although that kind of thing usually doesn't change in games post-launch, although things like the police might, and general fixes and things, but yeah. At the moment, online isn't as good as you might hope, which means after you finish the campaign, there's not going to be a lot to do, to be honest. So, what do I actually think of the game? Well, as I said, the effects are a weird choice, but I don't mind them after playing for a while, although I do feel like there should at least be an option to turn them off. The graphics are great, but not better than games such as Horizon 5. The car list is decent and has a few awesome new additions, but there are a few strange omissions. The handling is a big improvement, but still has a long way to go. Customization options are as plentiful as ever in a Need for Speed game. The map, I think, is better than Heat, but that's kind of personal preference. The police are more difficult than recent titles, but not by enough. They're still not all that scary like they should be, really, if they're chasing you in massive pickup trucks. The story is slightly better and longer than in Heat, but not by a huge amount, and I really don't like the online being separate, having small lobbies and not having any police. So make what you will of those individual elements, and hopefully it'll help you decide whether to get the game or not, depending on which of those are your priority, and kind of what I've said about each element of the game. If you haven't already bought it, of course. If you have already played the game, do let me know if you agree or disagree with anything I've said in this video. And although I've enjoyed my time playing through the campaign, I'm not sure now how much more of the game I'll actually get to play. I did think early on I'd be playing it for a while, because I was really enjoying it, but now that the campaign's finished and the online's completely separate and has no police, you're just kind of racing random people and not a lot of them join each race. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to be playing much more of it. I'll do a few more streams and videos and things, as long as you guys are enjoying them, but yeah, there's not really a lot to do. I do still feel like it was worth me getting the game, although I think at the moment it's not worth the full price. I hope they update some things in the future, then I'll potentially play some more again. If, for example, they add police to online, or give us some more variety of things to do. But yeah, I think it's not worth the full price. Maybe wait until it's reduced if you're looking to get it and you're unsure, but I wouldn't pay full price for it, probably. And if you already have Need for Speed Heat, this isn't necessarily enough of an improvement over that to warrant owning both, really. Apart from it being a different location and this one being slightly better handling and stuff, and slightly longer story, the car list's pretty similar. So yeah, in a lot of ways it's very similar to Heat. So if you prefer Miami as a location, I wouldn't bother getting this, probably. But anyway, I hope that this video has either been useful or interesting, or both, ideally. But for now, that is going to be all. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back with the next video very soon.